Oxenfree II, Lost Signals. Easy on the wallet, but is it worth your time?
We discover in order to find out here on Broke and Gaming.
Welcome absolutely everyone to Broke and Gaming. I'm your host Shea.
I am your other host Dan, and boy, it's good to be back. We took some time off because of some personal stuff, some work-related stuff, some travel-related stuff, some technological-related stuff. But we are back to our regular programming schedule, and we're going to jump right in to spooky season. We're going to be doing some scary games for the month of October. But before we get into any of that, Shea, what have you been playing recently?
Oh, so many things, Dan. I wrote down the list. I actually had to cut it in half because of how long it is.
Great.
I texted you the other day about all these games that I was downloading from the PlayStation Plus catalog. Mm-hmm. And I have just kind of been doing that for the last couple weeks, is downloading a ton of stuff and just playing about an hour of a lot of things. Yeah. So here's what I've brought to the table. These are some of the games that I've played a little bit more than other ones. The new Saints Row game was one of the free monthly games on PlayStation Plus, so I have been playing the hell out of that.
Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit, because that is one of the things that I've been playing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It is perfectly serviceable and nothing more.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I don't think it brings anything good or new to what it is. Like, it's fine, and it kind of scratches that itch a little bit, but, like, I don't care about any of the characters.
Yeah. It's fine in the same way that Saints Row 4 was fine. It wasn't better than 3, but it was still, like, some things were fun to do. You know what I mean?
Fine is probably the best word to use, honestly. Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to Saints Row, the game that I've been putting the most time into is Sea of Stars, which, Dan, I don't know if you started that, but you know me, I love me a party-based, turn-based battlers.
I have. I think, is that in our price range?
It's not. I have written right next to it in parentheses, if ever a price drop, we've got to cover it. So,
yeah.
I think right now it retails for $30 or $35, but it's very, very good.
I haven't had the capacity, I guess, to really dive into it, but there are certain things that remind me so much of, like, good SNES era JRPGs, like a Chrono Trigger or a Secret of Mana, and I really want to, like, dedicate the actual time to it. It's just not happening right now. But yeah, it from what I've played, it's so fucking good. Timmy and I were just talking about it this past weekend.
Yeah. I love it. Games that I don't love, Origami, which is an attempt at a stealth puzzle game, I guess? Stealth platformer, maybe? I don't know. It's very jumbled in what it's trying to be, and so I'm not having fun with that one. Because, like, when you're a stealth game and your stealth mechanics are not very tight, it's not a good time.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, your ability to fight anyone is non-existent as soon as you're seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the one that looks like it could have been a Ninja Gaiden game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's I don't know if it's bad or if I just haven't given it enough time, but I'm not having fun with that one so far. I have 3 more here, Dan, and I'll run through them real quickly.
Sure.
Rebel Galaxy, which you and I talked about outside of the show.
I hated that game.
I'm not there yet. I can easily see how I might get there, though.
Yeah.
So
we may cover it, because it is within our price range, so I'll give it another go, but from what I remember, I fucking hated that game.
I'm playing a game called Battle Chasers Night War, which is another party-based, turn-based battler.
Hell of a name.
Right? It's got a lot of things that I like about it. There are some issues with character growth, but the gameplay has been fun for me so far. And then the last thing that I have is I've been playing a ton of Slay the Spire because, Dan, I don't know if you know this or not, but that game plays super well on a tablet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love that game
see
on a
that.
tablet. So, yeah, I just bust my iPad out 15 minutes before I go to bed and do a level of Slay the Spire.
Nice.
So that's what I've been playing. But Dan, how about you? What have you been playing?
The non-crossover stuff, I mean, a lot of it was testing stuff out for the show and seeing like what would be viable or what we want to subject ourselves to in certain situations.
Correct. Yeah.
But one of those was a weird little indie puzzler called Torkel.
Okay.
Have you seen anything on the? Because it's free with PlayStation Plus.
Is it?
Yeah.
I must have missed that one. It's not ringing a bell.
Well, graphically, you are gonna hate it. Like, there's no question.
Fair enough.
It's so pixely. But the mechanic in it is that each one of your buttons on the controller, your X, circle, triangle, etc., depending on the type of controller that you're using, corresponds to one of the sides of a square that your character is in.
Oh,
and
no.
it extends like a pillar out of whichever side you press. So
Sorry,
you
do you mean the spiritual successor to Octodad?
I mean, you're not wrong in the way that it's just a pain in the ass to control.
Unbearable.
Like, you roll the cube, or, well, square, because it's all 2D. And then to, like, clear gaps, you have to, like, hit the right button, and then it extends it. Yeah, it's real hard and real just... the design of it is...
Quap?
Something.
Do you remember that game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. That's also a very good comparison.
A fucking awful experiment.
Yeah. So I'm putting my foot down on that one. We will not be covering that, which is the only reason I'm going to talk about it. I swear, Shea, you would hate it so much.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And like, I like an indie game. I like a puzzle game. This thing was fucking unbearable for me. So yeah, that's the big ones. Some dumb mobile stuff. Maple Story apparently do you remember Maple Story?
No, I do not.
So it was like an early MMORPG kind of thing, but it was built like a 2D platformer. It was also a wild money grab for some people. Like, it was the first game I ever remember where they would like charge for cosmetic detailing. Like, you could get...
Do you remember the days of video gaming where that wasn't just standard?
Yeah. And I kind of put it on Maple Story as the reason this is a thing.
Ugh.
Yeah, they have a mobile game that I kind of want to dip into just to see what it's like, because I did play Maple Story, and I did spend real world money to have a fucking wolf follow me around. But
who didn't?
I'm afraid of it, like, because I
for
don't...
that reason?
I have no reason to spend real money on mobile games like that.
Yeah,
and I don't want to even be tempted by it, so...
Yeah.
It's like Maple Heroes, I think. If anybody remembers Maple Story, fucking send me an email so we can compare numbers of how much we wasted. But, all right, we're a little rusty, but pretty sure that the next thing that we're supposed to do is jump into our game, which means we're going to start, as we always start, with our short change history. Today we're talking about Oxenfree II: Lost Signals, which is a 2023 narrative exploration game developed by Night School Studios and published by Netflix Games. We covered the first Oxenfree game way back in our 4th episode, and since then Night School has become the first company acquired by Netflix Games. In July 2021, Netflix hired former EA and Facebook executive Mike Verdu to be the VP of Game Development, with plans to release their first batch of games as early as 2022. Along with Night School, Netflix also acquired Next Games, Boss Fight Entertainment, and Spry Fox Studios, as well as establishing in-house studios in Helsinki and Southern California. Hey, Shea, did you know that if you're a Netflix subscriber, you have access to a whole bunch of games? I've never seen it advertised anywhere. You can...
Correct. Yes.
Dude. Like, you can go to the Netflix
actually.
site on your laptop or whatever, and there's a thing for Netflix games, and it gives you like links to download free stuff for mobile, or you can play in browser. I didn't know this existed at all.
Grease is one of those games, I believe.
I think you may be right. It is a couple games that we've covered for the show, but so that's a fucking thing. At any rate, so today's game is on there, but otherwise, Oxenfree II is available currently for the PlayStation, Switch, PC, and mobile platforms.
Not Xbox, huh?
Not Xbox.
That's interesting.
I agree. All right, Shea, would you like to tell us what the game is actually about?
Sure thing, Dan. In Oxenfree II Lost Signals, you play as Riley, who has been hired by, I believe, a university research lab to investigate some strange signals on the harbor that is adjacent to Edwards Island, where the first Oxenfree took place. Over the course of the night, you and your partner Jacob traverse the island, setting up transmitters to block out a portal in the sky while squaring off against 3 local teenagers who want to bring about the end of the world.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. I don't know that they know that's what they're doing, but
Correct,
that is definitely the potential result.
Yes, that makes it sound like these teenagers are much more sinister than they are when really I think this girl is only after like a nice afternoon with her dad or something like that.
Yeah. So let's get into that because I do want to cover a lot of the story, but I don't want to get into spoilers so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This series is fucking great. I really enjoyed the first one. I really enjoyed this one.
Hey, Dan, how scared were you when you found out that Netflix Games was the one publishing this?
Incredibly. Like,
yeah.
I was so worried about the quality drop. I was so worried about corporate oversight. Like, I didn't know if they were going to let them make the same type of game as the first one. Like, we've seen time and time again where, like, an IP will get taken over by a bigger company and, like, the quality just drops because they're just about pushing it out and making money.
Yep.
I'm so fucking relieved that didn't seem to be the case here. Like, overall, it does seem like a shorter game than the first one. But I feel like it was an appropriate length anyway. But, yeah, so as Riley, you meet up with another person hired by this research firm, whatever they may be. And what were your impressions of Jacob right off the bat? Because you had mentioned to me directly, but I want to see if how that's evolved.
I thought Jacob was so fucking dull at the beginning of this game. He just chattered on and on and on, and it was like, dude, nobody asked you about any of this.
Yeah.
And now you're being a little invasive into, I guess not my privacy, but my privacy as Riley. He's just like, this is the first time they've met. Well, I guess not really, but like this is the first time they've kind of spoken or interacted.
It's vague, yeah.
Yeah. I guess he fucking stalked her in the hallways in 9th grade or something like that, but
not super wrong.
Yeah, he just did not strike me as particularly interesting or somebody worth spending the entire game with.
He felt like the quintessential fifth wheel in a sitcom type situation.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like where he clearly has a crush on the main character of the show.
Yeah.
And just like awkwardly fumbles his way through conversations.
Right.
I thought he was well written in that regard, but yeah, at first it's like, God, fucking shut up. We just have this job to do.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is like, can you just be a professional for a second? Like, eventually, yeah, I kind of warmed up to him as I kind of experienced Riley's perspective of things, and like, eventually, I was able to kind of see myself in a position where you have a choice to kind of tell him a big secret later on in the game.
Yeah.
And I definitely found myself in that moment being like, of course I would tell Jacob. You know what I mean?
I did the same thing. I know exactly what you're talking about. I made the same choice.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like a question. You know what I mean? Like by that point I was like, oh, Jacob's my friend. Like I'm definitely going to tell him.
Right.
He does have like a crush on Riley for sure, but he's not like a fucking creep about it because he's a grown up. And that was, honestly, I mean, like, I know that this is such a low fucking bar for men, but, like, it was so refreshing to not have to play as a female-presenting character and have to, like, you know, choose, are you going to be Jacob's enemy or are you going to fuck? You know what I mean?
I fucking so agree.
Yeah.
Because even, I mean, and this is not totally spoiler stuff, but, like, I don't think there's a situation in which they become a couple. Like, no. I don't think there's an outcome, regardless of choices made, that, like, they become an item. And that's great. Like, the fact that there's not a romantic undertone at all, really, is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only even hint at romance comes from that one character that I was talking to you about that you have over the radio.
Yeah.
And that's romance is a stretch for that. But I think the apex of Jacob and Riley's relationship is that the trophy that you can get for them. Yeah.
The one on the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking awesome. And so well written.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this about the first game. I feel even more strongly about it in this one. The way that it's written is so natural.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, like, everything seems like a real conversation.
Yes.
Right down to the interjections. The fact that you can cut characters off, depending on the choices that you're making, still feels, like, incredibly natural. Like, I don't know how they pulled it off. I've never seen writing like this in a video game for sure, but, like, even in TV or film, like, it's not this crisp a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what they accomplished.
Yeah. They feel like very grounded, real characters through the power of these little snippets of conversation that they have. And none of it feels stilted or like for dramatic effect, or like nobody's throwing out a Schwarzenegger line.
No.
In these games, you know.
And if it's done, it's an intentional tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, Jacob does make stupid comments occasionally, and then he, like, immediately understands how dumb that thing was, and he's like, wow, I'm real sorry about that. Which is great, because that's how people are in real life.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, they carried this over from the first game as well. You have the option of not saying anything during those dialogue trees. And rather than having it just be something that hangs in the air and waits for you to respond, they'll just carry on, and they'll take that as all right, they're ignoring me. Yeah. Again, fucking amazing. That's such a cool mechanic if that's the way you want to play, like, just completely non-conversational. I love that. So you had mentioned some of the characters on the radio, and they did a great job with this as well in this installment. This wasn't really a thing in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a couple different characters that you can interact with strictly through the radio. How did you feel about all of that?
I feel like in the second game, the tunable radio, like the FM radio that you have to deal with the portals and shit, I feel like that was not nearly as significant in this game. And I feel like some of that was pulled in favor of walkie-talkie conversations, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I felt a little bit of a disconnect, though, because I feel like what shined so brightly in the first game mechanically was all of these radio puzzles, and they're kind of not really there in this game.
Yeah.
But and like I said, I don't know that that's a bad thing. I don't know that this game needed all of that, but it just felt like they had sacrificed the radio parts for the walkie-talkie bits. So that was my takeaway from that.
That's fair.
I think Nick, in particular, was such an interesting arc to play through.
Yeah.
And just having those conversations with him throughout the night. And, like, again, it's a testament to the writing, because, like, after a while I was like, you know, whenever I would do anything, I'd be like, oh, I got to check in on Nick. Like, how's Nick doing? You know, got to make sure Nick's okay. Did he make it back to the fishing post? And so that was, I mean, just another hook into, like, myself into Riley. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I had learned while preparing for the episode after I completed it how many characters I feel like I missed out on.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely didn't do anything with the Hank portion of the game.
Oh, man. Can I tell you how fucking angry I am about that? So, to get Hank's trophy, I did literally everything correctly, except I didn't make fun of him in one of the responses that I had about trusting me to get him information.
Okay.
So, like, I got the item that he needs at a different part of the game. I went all the way through. I fucked around with his EMF detectors that changed the time in that particular rift, and did all of that, fucking fumbling my way through the dark, because I was like, I'm not going to look up any guides for this because I don't want to spoil anything. So I did all of that shit, and then I had that last conversation with him, and I was like, should I not have given him that item now? And so I finally caved, and I was like, how do I get that trophy? And it turns out that there's, like, the last dialogue option that you have with Hank. I picked the the middle option, and it was the one to the left or something
That's
like that. It was
really
so
silly.
angry.
All right, fair enough. There was also the thing where like a guy
Yeah.
contacts you about a backpack, and I don't
think I got that one at all.
like just at random, some guy was like, "Hey, oh wait, I think it was maybe Nick. I think Nick was like, "Hey, I left a backpack somewhere," and then it just like doesn't matter
Oh yeah.
because I definitely did not find that backpack.
Yeah.
I don't know how that affects anything.
Yeah, no, I definitely remember that. I don't think it plays out much further.
I'm gonna replay this for sure. So like,
Yeah,
maybe I'll
definitely,
report
yeah.
back on that. But you are right though. The FM radio, it's not quite as robust with the amount of things that you can listen in on. But the ones you can, woof, there's some
Fucking
real
chilling,
weird
dude.
stuff. Yeah, really.
That guy calling the baseball game?
Yes, and then just
First off, did he not sound like Anthony Birch?
he kind of did. And you had texted
He
me.
sure fucking did.
You had texted me like,
Yeah.
Anthony Birch sighting, and I'm like, I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah, no, the first time he pops up on the radio, he sounds exactly like Anthony Birch, and then later on he doesn't at all. But
Yeah.
I immediately texted you, and I was like, Anthony Birch sighting, but that was incorrect.
Yeah, but as that progresses and he just starts going into like a weird loop about like standing in the rain and so good.
Yeah.
The music is whatever, like as far as the radio stuff
Yeah.
is concerned. I will say I did miss from the first one, and it kind of comes back, but in a way that doesn't matter. Being able to tune into channels at certain locations to get information about the location.
Yeah.
It stinks that didn't really carry over in the same way, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which was probably good for my mental health, because that kind of shit will drive, like, literally that probably would have tripled the playtime that I had logged into this, and it wouldn't have been an enjoyable time for me.
Yeah.
You know? Just knowing, like, if at any point I stumbled across a hint about an area on the radio, I would then obsessively move from one platform to the next and just tune the radio back and forth.
That's
And
true.
drive me insane. You know what I mean? So I'm not necessarily disappointed that that's not in this game, but yeah, I do think that I missed the radio a little bit,
Yeah.
and not even like so much so that like what it lent to the game, but just like I feel like they had so many more channels in this game and just a lot of dead air.
Well, you also got the full range a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Going from the FM, like just standard FM radio, to that full like military grade bandwidth. Like you had that so much sooner, and they really didn't capitalize on it. Like even the puzzles that have to do with the radio, like to your point, as far as like tuning into the actual like rifts and anomalies, seemed a lot easier. Like you could just hold until you saw it go red and then backtrack a little bit. Like it wasn't as finicky. And that was probably like a note that they had gotten, because there arguably were people like you that were like, I'm trying to do this, I'm standing in this right spot, what's going wrong? So they just corrected, I feel.
Yeah.
Because I did have the same problem. I don't know why I'm putting that on you. I definitely had that same problem. You had mentioned it first. Gameplay-wise, not too much to talk about here.
Yeah.
The puzzles are, I think, a lot easier overall. Mm-hmm. The only one that's a little bit challenging are the like 4-axis thing when you get to those televisions, or no, those weird machines where you had to like make them create an object out of the radio waves.
Oh yeah.
That was the only thing that was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. It was just trial and erroring and brute forcing.
Yeah, but like weirdly they put like a sound to indicate that you were getting closer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really accurate, or at least it wasn't guiding you really in the right direction.
I agree.
Because there would be 2 areas where it would get higher pitched, indicating that you were closer, and they were opposite each other, and only one of them was right. So like, why is it screaming at the other side as well? It was just, right. I don't know.
And they didn't, it wasn't like you're trying to make a cube. You're trying to make like it was
right.
Figure it out, just motherfucker.
Flip switches until you see a shape. Yeah.
I didn't love that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are certainly worse crimes in a lot of other games, especially puzzle related.
Correct. Yes.
I don't know. You have any other specifics you want to discuss before we get into pros and cons?
How
effective do you think the horror elements of this were? since we are in spooky season?
I don't know. It definitely was not nearly as creepy as the first game was.
Yeah, because I think part of it is that we're a little used to the effects of the Canalilla victims.
Yeah.
And so I guess because they didn't like really ramp it up too much,
which is good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like any further down this path and it starts to get more silly.
Yeah.
Then
I
creepy.
totally agree with that.
So I think kind of refocusing onto the human characters. I say human. You know what I mean. But like the character growth of Riley and Jacob and the teens on the island, I think was a better move than trying to like up the ante on the ghosts.
Yeah. And like the big thing that they added as far as the mystery, almost horror, but not quite, was the time jump element.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how specific I want to get here, but there's a lot of sequences that have to do with what Riley's potential future is.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool.
Heartbreaking, man.
In some cases, extremely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But because of some of the choices that you can make, it isn't necessarily her actual future, which is it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Like the writing. It's just it all comes down to the writing. It's so solid. The discussions about Riley and her father and their issues, and then actually getting to see dialogue, even though it seems like it's a dream sequence being played out. Mm-hmm. Like that was all fantastic. Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I guess we could just go ahead and say that's our first really big pro here, is the writing is just stellar.
Yeah.
I can't think of many more examples of emotional, natural, poignant writing than this series so far. This is just, it's kind of in a league of its own.
Yeah. A big pro that I have for this game, this is like a weird thing to kind of verbalize, but like, you know, I've complained a lot in the past about how speech bubble or like response bubbles will say one thing and what the person actually says is very different than the tone of what's in the speech bubble. This game did a really good job of not necessarily cutting out that issue, but they were very consistent in how Riley responded, to the point where like I could read a response bubble that said like, sure, and know that she's not going to be a dick if I say this. You know what I mean? Like, sure is just going to be sure. And then, like, the tone of the response bubbles was very learnable, I guess, from her responses.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They're well summarized in a consistent manner, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
I think a pro for me is the overall vibe. I think between both games in this series, I think they've done a really good job of setting a specific tone that's easy to get immersed into with kind of minimalist effort. It's not like everything is like creepy and foggy, and it's not like there's like always this 80s style, you know, slasher film soundtrack that other games do hinge themselves on. It's all so subtle and just, I think, masterfully done. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the setting was different enough from Edward's Island, but still held the same kind of...
You knew you were in the same region. Like...
Yeah, but like you were also not in the same region. You know what I mean? Like it was distinct enough from Edward's Island that you were in a different place, but you were still in the same series, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like this was definitely an Oxenfree sequel, but in a totally different place. Mm-hmm. Do you have any cons for this game, Dan?
I was just thinking that. I don't know that I have any specific cons. I mean, I could mention length, but like I do think at the end of this, it makes sense for it to be as long as it was, especially because I kind of think like these two games could be played back to back.
Right.
If you watch, you know, a film series and you're like, I really want to watch the first one to gear up for the second one. Yeah. I think this is the video game equivalent of that. Both of these can be played as a pair, and you're just kind of tacking on a new experience to something you already love. If this is your cup of tea. Plus, that length kind of does lend itself to the potential for replayability.
Well, hold your horses there, Dan.
I know.
Not there yet.
I know.
Yeah, I actually did. I had written down a bunch of cons as I was playing through the early stages of this game, and then as I was playing through, a lot of them just kind of naturally transformed into pros for me. So,
do you have another example of that?
Well, so I had written down initially that this second game feels a lot more like a guided, kind of straightforward story.
It is more linear. Yes.
Yeah, than the first one. But I also think, and I kind of touched on it when I was like, they didn't, I think it was a good thing that they didn't try to ramp up the ghosts or anything like that. I think they really did a good job of then shifting that focus into the characters and putting more emphasis on like time travel rather than like dimensional portals. You know what I mean? Because I think that both games have this kind of theme of the terror of existence, and they both told that story in like similar but distinct ways.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
I think that this game did a really good job of focusing on unknown possibilities in the future, where the first game focused on unknown repercussions from the past,
Yeah, and then both kind of touching on like it's hard to just be a person right now. Like forget all that other stuff. Like just existing currently is tough.
Right.
Now tack on all that other. Yeah, actually that's a great point.
Yeah, so like I said, that was initially a con for me, but it kind of morphed into a pro as I was playing through the game. Jacob was another example of a con that turned into a pro. I cannot stress enough how disinteresting I found him in like the first hour and a half to 2 hours of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like I said, he turned into a shining spot in this game. So
cool. All right, we ready to do this?
You know how much I love throwing numbers, Dan. So let's do it. Up first, does it work?
I have no complaints because it's relatively simple gameplay and more about the narrative aspect of it. With the minor issues as far as those puzzles are concerned, yeah, no, this works great. That's a full point.
Yeah, easy peasy. I mean, it's like I said, it's a little bit more straightforward than the first game is, so the control schemes for it are also more straightforward, and so like it doesn't really need a whole lot more to work. So yeah, easy point here.
Yep.
Speaking of easy points, Dan, is it engaging?
My God, yeah, no.
It's so good.
Absolutely easy point.
So good.
Even ancillary characters, they make you care about with it's amazing to me because you're right. Nick is a standout. Mm-hmm. And it's just a voice over a radio. You never meet them in person, but just these discussions you have and really actually giving a shit as to whether or not he's safe out on that boat. Like, it's that one little aspect alone. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. The interactions you have with the kids, the interactions you have with Evelyn over the radio, and what's going on with her sister and all these, like, it's so good. Yes, full point.
Yeah. Easy peasy. Moving on. Does it look good?
So this actually has a slight graphical upgrade from the first game. They made them more clear 3D models. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much that actually affected it, but I would say that the first one looked good. This one also looks good. I have zero problem giving this a full point. Plus the environments are all really well done.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, they did a really good job of like putting you in the region. Like you're in an Oxenfree game, right?
Yep.
But it's not the first one. You know what I mean? And so I think there is a easy point there as well.
Yeah.
Is there replayability?
This is an emphatic yes from me. This series has kind of now made it known that like you're gonna want to play this more than once. We're gonna give you some big tentpole options, and they do that really cool thing where you get to see what percentage of other players did certain actions.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that Telltale would do that, and it does make you want to take the path less traveled in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. So yeah, full point. I'm definitely playing this again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a point.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I know the hesitation is partly based on the fact that I know you haven't completed it yet. The big ones are coming up, and I feel like that's going to seal the deal for you.
Well, so here's the thing is that, and this is really my only hesitation in not giving it a full point. I don't love when games tell you how long to play them. You know what I mean? And I've verbalized that on the show before, but
Sure.
I don't think that this is quite the same. Like, it's entirely up to you if you want to play again. You know what I mean? The emotional hooks in this game alone will probably make you want to play through it again. But yeah, I mean, like I said, my only hesitation in get on a full point is that you kind of have to play it again. So, but yeah,
that.
I'm still gonna give it a point here, just for dog petting alone.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, is there a story?
That's the easiest of peasies.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely there's a story. It is all story, and it is a great story. So, yes, full point.
I wrote down that this one I think is a lot more of a visual novel than the first one.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do, because the first one was, like, threaded such a fine needle of that.
It did, but I feel like that had a bit more of a choose-your-own-adventure aspect to it than just straight-up visual novel.
Yeah, you're right about that, yeah. But still. All right, Dan, our final big 5-point question. Is it worth the cost?
So, Oxenfree II retails at $19.99. That was its debut price. This game is only a couple months old now. We bought it. Basically, I pre-ordered it, and I never pre-order games. And I think at $20, it's real close to a 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think because it feels like such an extension of the first one, I don't know that $20 is exactly the right price. I'm going to give it a 4. Mm-hmm. I loved this so much, but it is a sequel, and it's not a sequel at the same time. It's kind of parts of the whole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These will almost certainly be bundled at some point. And depending on what the price is for that, I would highly recommend it. If you can get these for less than $20 a piece as a package deal, 1,000% that would be worth it. But just as it stands right now, $20, just a little bit steep. So I'm going to go with a 4.
Yeah, I think the video game industry has kind of spoiled itself into making us think that $20 is like, because it's not $70, this is a really good price for a video game. Right. And I don't think that's true for many of the games that they put out there at $20. This is close. This is real close.
It's
like
so
you said.
Close.
Yeah, if I could, I would give it like a 4.5. But can't do half points here, so 4 points from me as well.
Is that a hard rule, by the way? Not doing a half
we have to draw the line somewhere, right, Dan?
I suppose that's. I mean, yeah.
Do
I
we?
guess.
Do we? You're
I
right.
don't know, because you know what? I'm kind of tempted.
We're gonna. Maybe the new year will bring in some changes to the scoring system, but for right now,
this may be a tentative 9.5.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that's going to put our final scores for today. 9 points from me, 9 points from Shea. We absolutely do recommend this. And as noted in our short change, if you have Netflix, if you are a Netflix subscriber, or I don't promote crimes much anymore, but if you have like someone else's Netflix password,
this is definitely
you can play
a crime
these
that you
games
should,
for free. Yeah, exploit this crime.
Yeah, if you can, do it.
Yeah, there's like 60 or so games on the Netflix games site.
Wow.
These being 2 of them. I mean, not even close to this quality in a lot of cases. We'll go over this in our own time, because there's some real dog shit on there. But these are both great. Moonlighter is one of the ones that are on there, which we both loved as well. And I would absolutely recommend people try. But yeah, fucking... They're already taking your money. Might as well get some games out of it. But yeah, I feel good about this. This is a cool way to kick off our spooky season. And God, I'm really curious to see what they do with this series going forward. We mentioned this in the first episode, but there is an adaptation in the works through Netflix. Obviously, with at the time we are right now, there are still strikes going on in the film industry. But as far as I know, it has not been canceled, any of these projects. And I'm pretty sure it's going to revolve around Maggie Adler, who I definitely want to know more about. Like, they've peppered in information about her over the course of both of these games, you actually do sorta talk to her in this one, and fuck, I love this.
I gotta be honest with you, I think a Maggie Adler TV show is a lot better of an idea than a Maggie Adler-centered game.
Oh, yeah, I fully agree with that.
Yeah, so I'll be excited to see that.
Yeah.
But, Dan, regardless of numbers, is this a game that you would recommend?
I absolutely would, yeah.
Yeah.
The series as a whole. The game they put out in between, which I think we had mentioned that it was out in the first Oxenfree episode, but just for due diligence's sake, they also released After Party in 2019, a game that I played and forgot existed. Yeah, it was fine. It was a similar type of game, but it all takes place in hell. Yeah, it's more tongue-in-cheek, it's more whatever,
Do they have the line in it, Dan? Do they have the fucking line in it?
The line?
The line.
No.
Is it dangerous, Dan?
They
if you don't bring people with you?
They did not. It's
or this damn sword?
Well, actually, you know what? That ties in great because hey Shea, while we're here, do you want to play a game?
Dan, use cars to build the most efficient race car with me. I would love to play a game.
That's fantastic. By the way, what?
That is a game called Heat, which is a kind of like a deck building racing game. It's very, very cool. Lex and I are actually about to record an episode about it tonight. So you'll see that in a couple weeks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so games. Oxenfree is a game that focuses heavily on things like alternative realities and playing with memory. In our real lives, people have identified a phenomenon of mass misremembering, which is referred to as the Mandela effect. Since video games have been part of our social conscious for a little over a half century now, there are several examples of the Mandela effect in some beloved games. For example, many, many people remember falling off the Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 64, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Rainbow Road has a rail in the N64 version. It is impossible to fall off the Rainbow Road in the N64 version.
How about that?
So that's the kind of thing we're going to be discussing today. And based on what you were just talking about with It's Dangerous to Go Alone, how about we start this off with a couple of quotes from some games.
Sure.
So we'll start off with your favorite game. And I would like you to complete this off-quoted line from Skyrim. I used to be an adventurer like you.
Something about my knee, there's an arrow.
Yes. All right. Can you give me Okay, so I'll give you two options on this one.
Sure.
Is it, because you're right, but it's the specifics.
Yeah.
And then I took an arrow in the knee, or and then I took an arrow to the knee.
I want to say to the knee because I feel like I see in the knee online more, but I mean, I couldn't tell you for sure. I think to the knee.
It is in the knee, and it's like a weirdly misremembered thing because I've seen it in memes where it says to the knee. Like in my brain, that makes more sense. This is one that I've absolutely fallen for.
Yeah.
But
this effect, by the way, affects me every single time I think of a press release that I think I've seen on Twitter.
Go on.
So every time you say something like, oh, one of these songs was in Death Stranding, for example. Yeah. I think to myself, didn't I just see a press release about Kojima having breakfast with churches or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not outside the realm of possibility either way.
So if you're confused on what this effect is and looks like, just listen to any of the games we've played on this show.
Mm-hmm. All right. So do you want to do another line or do you want to do some other ones first?
Whatever you want to do, Dan. I'm going to get 0 points on this quiz. So,
well, since there's not like a whole lot of interactivity in choice or anything like that, how about I give you the topics and you can decide between them. One has a visual, so we're going to save that one for last.
Okay.
I've got a question about Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, fucking lead with that one. I don't know jack shit about that game.
Okay, great. Super Mario, the original Super Mario, and Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh boy. Let's do Donkey Kong first, although
Okay.
not feeling great about
That's
other
fine.
two.
All right, so the Donkey Kong Country sequel is called A, Diddy Kong's Quest, B, Diddy's Kong Quest, or C, Diddy Kong Quests.
Gun to my head, B, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool.
So for the most part, I'm going with ones that I absolutely have fallen for or remember differently.
Sure.
There is no doubt in my head that it was Diddy Kong's quest, like possessive of the character, his quest.
Yeah.
But it's Diddy's Kong quest. And I don't understand how that's possible. I owned this. I played it a lot. I beat it multiple times.
You're like, I'm staring at the cover right now. It says
it's the
Diddy
apostrophes
Kong's Quest.
in a different place. No, but that's a point. Yeah, absolutely. And
all right.
Well done.
That was a guess, Dan.
A.
To be honest with you, I thought the sequel was called Donkey Kong Country 2. So
It is, but it's Donkey Kong Country 2.
Oh, that's a subtitle. Okay.
Colon.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's D, and you're also right. Yeah, good. All right.
I feel a little bit better now.
Cool. Pokemon or Mario?
Let's do Mario.
All right. So this is another one where you're going to complete the line.
Okay.
Now, this happens at the end of every world, at least the first 7 worlds, in the original Super Mario Brothers game.
Okay.
Thank you, Mario, but the princess is in another castle. Thank you, Mario, but your princess is in another castle. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle.
Better not be your fucking princess. That's gross. Our?
That's the... Okay, yes. Yeah. It is that. I didn't know there was more happening there.
No.
Yes, it is our princess.
I'm just glad that it's not your princess.
It's all of our princesses.
Yes. The royal hour.
Yes, our princess. That's 2 points. All right. Up next, we'll do the Pokemon one.
Sure.
In Pokemon Red and Blue, Psyduck is what type of Pokemon? Are they a... What? I mean, yeah, if you want to answer.
Oh. No, I'll take options.
Okay.
Thanks, though.
You got it. Is Psyduck water, psychic, or water and psychic?
You're such a dick. I don't know. Water and psychic.
He or they or...
What varies, I believe, Dan.
Yeah, they do have... I mean, not in this one. They were all neutral gendered the entire time in the first one because you can't breed them, I don't think.
Oh.
Yeah, that wasn't until like the second or third one where they... Nidorino, and those progression lines were the only ones that had genders in the first series. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
But never been psychic. They can use psychic attacks for some reason. They're called Psyduck. They are strictly water and have only ever been water.
How about that?
This is kind of a dual Mandela effect thing because people misremembered that double classifications started in a later generation, but Charizard is, from the very first game, fire and flying.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people are like, no, everyone had one, and that's it. But, you know, whatever. So yes.
Read it and weep.
That's right, suckers. So yeah, just the water type. All right, and for our final one, this is going to have a visual component, which we will put up in our Instagram when the episode is posted. Shea, which one of these Pikachus is correct?
The one on the right. No. Of course it's not the one on the right.
Do you want to describe to the listener what we're looking at?
Yeah, so it's 2 completely identical Pikachus, except the one on the left has a large black stripe at the end of its tail, and the one on the right has only yellow at the end of its tail. It's got to be the one on the left, huh? I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna.
Which could it be?
I'm gonna stick with the one on the right because that's what I said initially, but I guarantee you that that's me misremembering that Pikachu.
So, no black stripe on the end of the tail.
Correct. but
similar to the black stripes on the ears.
Yes.
Yeah, you're correct. There is no black stripe on a Pikachu's tail.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. This is, again, one of those things where in fan art and all these other things they've done has this black stripe, and no one knows exactly where this started or came from. Obviously, there is the similarity to the way the ears are tipped, that it might be the same with the tail, but somebody found like a very brief clip of the anime series where there's a shadow cast on Pikachu's tail that makes it look like it might be a black tip, but then as it moves into the light, it goes away, solid yellow. That's the only thing we can really think of.
Is that from that little motherfucker doing Iron Tail all the time or whatever?
That could be, because it kind of has an axe shape at the end, like when it's like that. That's not wrong.
Yeah, loves doing Iron Tail, even though he can thunderbolt his way out of literally any problem, but sure.
Yeah. That's 3 points for today, Shay.
Hey, that's a home run, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. And we want to make note, in our last episode, in what ended up being the most extravagant thing I've gotten for Shay as a prize for points totals, Shay got themselves a new tattoo.
I did, and it will be going up with this episode. It's had a weird healing process, which is why you haven't seen it yet. But hopefully when this episode drops, the tattoo will also be accompanying it.
That's right. We want to thank Carissa Stitt from Prevenia Tattoo for coming in on her day off to do the tattoo for Shay in the limited window from when they were up from Barbados. I'm so happy with how it turned out. Our art designer, Fisher, designed it for Shay, and it looks so fucking cool. Yeah. I was also told I'm not allowed to get the same thing. Thank you, Fisher. It's okay. I'm just messing with you. But that's going to just about do it for us today. As always, you can follow the show on both Twitter and Instagram at BNGPod, where we post sales that you should be aware of that we call cheap codes, as well as custom artwork for every episode.
If you want to share the show, you can do so with our hosting site, which is anchor.fm/BNGpod. And if you want to follow us on Twitch, where I will be getting back into every other weekend of streaming, you can do so at twitch.tv/BNGpodcast. And if you miss the streams, you can catch all of them over on our brand new YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BrokeNGamingPodcast.
And if you want to send us an email for any reason, you can do so at brokeendgamingpod@gmail.com. Seriously, if you have any other Mandela effects that are video game related, send those our way. If you spent, I'll say, in excess of $50 at any point in time on MapleStory, send us the receipts. I swear, I feel like MapleStory was much more popular than I knew, or alternately, nobody else knows what the fuck I'm talking about. It's gonna be one or the other. Yeah, I made all of it up. Could very well be. Everything's a fugue state. All right.
Yep.
Hey, Shay, what are we playing next time?
Next time, in anticipation of Halloween, Dan, we'll be playing a little game called Secret Neighbor. So make sure you tune in for that.
Boy, yeah, this is going to be an episode.
It sure is.
I don't like this series. Ugh. It's going to be fine. This one's co-op, right?
I believe so.
Some co-op-y stuff? Well,
yeah.
Maybe that'll make up for it then. Who knows? We will all find out together on our next episode. But until then, goodbye. Absolutely everyone.
Goodbye.